In this week's Iron Will Report, the link between MAiD and organ harvesting in Canada. The Earth dies of climate change, but no one notices. BC sets new records for drug deaths, and a man is fired for refusing to fill in his employer's woke checkbox. All that and much more. This is the news that mainstream media won't report, and our government doesn't want you to hear. Bill C-7 legalized doctor-assisted suicide in Canada in 2016. Since then, Canada has surpassed all other countries in the number of people who have died via MAiD, or medical assistance in dying. But most of you already know that. What you may not know is that Canada is also the world leader in organ harvesting, at least via legal means. But even accounting for illegal organ harvesting, we're surpassed only by China, which has almost 40 times our population. Canada harvests half of the world's post-euthanasia organs while accounting for only 0.5% of the global population. This means that per person, Canada is harvesting 200 times the international average following MAiD deaths. In 2016, both Canada and California legalized medically assisted suicide, but in 2021, the state of California saw 486 MAiD deaths, while Canada's official statistic was 10,064. It is only in Canada that doctor-assisted suicide can be approved by a nurse practitioner rather than by a physician, and it is now common practice in BC to offer MAiD as an option to patients entering the healthcare system. Angelina Ireland is on the board of directors for the Delta Hospice Society, which was illegally shut down by the government of BC for refusing to offer MAiD to patients. I interviewed Angelina this past week, and that interview will be released shortly. I asked Angelina about where the organs that are harvested in Canada from MAiD go and what their commercial value is. She said, "It's called the red market," and even she doesn't know much more than that. We do know that a kidney on the red market can sell for as much as $100,000 US. The government is now moving toward lowering the minimum age for MAiD in Canada to 14, and workers at food banks are getting increasing requests from those living in poverty on whether or not MAiD is an option for them. Not because they're dying, just because being poor is hard, and our government is sending the message that suicide is the easy way out. This past week, New Brunswick joined Nova Scotia in making organ harvesting an opt-out procedure. Unless they opt out, all New Brunswick and Nova Scotia residents will be considered organ donors upon death. Street drugs are now the leading cause of death for young and working-age people in British Columbia, killing more people between the ages of 10 and 59 than homicides, suicides, accidents, and natural diseases combined. A few years ago, I could have said the cause was illegal drugs. But hard drugs like crack and meth aren't illegal in BC anymore, at least not in small quantities for personal use. Data from the BC Coroner's Service states that 1,018 people have died from drug use since the start of the year, with 227 dying in January, 193 in February, 204 in March, 218 in April, and 176 in May. If trends continue, the number of BC drug deaths in 2023 will surpass 2022's record number. Of the drug deaths reported so far this year, 85% were linked to fentanyl. Other drugs responsible for large amounts of deaths include methamphetamine and cocaine. British Columbia was the first place in North America to open a supervised drug injection site back in 2003. There are now many more in the province today, but while they are branded as a harm reduction measure, drug deaths have skyrocketed since their introduction 20 years ago. In classic government think, since supervised drug injection sites intended to protect addicts has only encouraged drug use, resulting in more, not fewer, deaths, it only makes sense in the minds of the BC government to decriminalize drug use, making it far more accessible. While hard drugs are not technically legal in BC, enforcement officers have been instructed to ignore possession of small amounts. Non-prosecution is effectively the same thing as legalization. Drug overdoses have killed 12,264 people in BC since April 2016, while nationally, over 32,000 people have died from overdoses since the same date. This means that while BC has 13.5% of Canada's population, it accounts for over 38% of deaths from drug overdoses. BC residents are dying from drug overdoses at 3 times the national average. Whether or not BC's lax drug laws are working would depend upon what you think the intent of them is. I regret to inform you that we all died this past Wednesday. 5 years ago, climate alarmist Greta Thunberg tweeted that if we didn't do something immediately to stop global warming, we would all be dead within 5 years. Greta's deadline was this past Wednesday. Her tweet has since been deleted, but not before it was captured by another alert Twitter user. Okay, let's be fair. She didn't exactly say we would all be dead in 5 years. She said if we hadn't stopped using fossil fuels entirely by this past Wednesday, we were all doomed. She left the exact date of our demise open to interpretation. In February, Thunberg released her book with the original title, The Climate Book. She says it contains the wisdom of over 100 contributors to equip us with the knowledge we need to avoid a climate disaster. I'm impressed. Considering Thunberg is a high school dropout with zero knowledge of any actual science, I didn't think she could even read, let alone write. So, come on, none of us believe she actually wrote it. She's been used as a marketing tool since she was 12. This is just another piece of propaganda they slapped her name on. For any of you who may still think there's some validity to climate alarmism, my own interviews with former climate alarmist Tom Harris can be found at ironwillreport.com. I made a change this past week. You can now get a full access 15-day trial without providing your credit card information. Signing up only takes a minute and grants instant access. For the Tom Harris interviews after signing up, go to Will's Picks under the Interviews section. The Tom Harris interviews can be found in the top row. Occasionally someone, somewhere, does something so counter to the narrative that we proclaim them our hero of the week. This week's hero is software engineer Chad Scharf. Chad was fired by his employer, password management company Bitwarden, for his unique response to company pressure to declare his preferred pronoun for use in company communications. As his preferred pronoun, Chad wrote, "assigned by God." Chad is now suing the company for back pay after his unlawful dismissal. When Mr. Scharf asked the human resources director why it was okay for him to be exposed to pronouns that offend his religious beliefs, but not okay for him to choose a pronoun that affirms his beliefs, the HR director simply shrugged. It should be noted that while Mr. Scharf was fired for gender harassment, no actual complaints were filed against him by other employees. That is all for this week's free version of the Iron Will Report. If you want to help us spread the truth, please subscribe to our channel, then like and share this video. Social media algorithms promote content based upon how many followers, likes, and shares they get, so please take just a few moments to do that and help us share the truth with others. In this week's members version of the Iron Will Report, Elon Musk defends the rights of the non-gender confused. The BC government is now shipping cancer patients to Washington state for treatment due to a lack of personnel. The federal Conservatives are attempting to pass a bill that would make future lockdowns and vaccine mandates illegal. More debunking of the residential schools narrative and a possible move by the government to make residential schools denialism illegal. A BlackRock employee reveals how to beat the stock market on hidden camera. An exclusive update on the CPSO hearing against Dr. Mark Trozzi. Musk challenges Mark Zuckerberg to a cage match. And students are accused of hate speech by a woke teacher for wearing shirts that insist there are only 2 genders. On Sunday, an interview with Dr. Peter McCullough on a variety of subjects, but with a special focus on the significant statistical link between autism and transgenderism. Then on Wednesday, my recent interview with constitutional lawyer Leighton Gray on UNDRIP, the UN Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. As mentioned, I've made some changes at ironwillreport.com, so you can now get a full access 15-day free trial without providing your credit card information. so you can view all of the aforementioned material plus my library of hundreds of interviews with no risk.